Okay.
Correct.
All right. Good evening. I call this meeting to order pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023 and is amended as of March 28, 2025. This meeting will be conducted in person and as a courtesy via remote means in accordance with applicable law. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public and board members, the meeting/hearing will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast unless required by law. This meeting will be recorded by the local scene. Members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so by watching the Duxbury government access channels, which are Verizon 39 and Comcast 9. Viewers can visit thelocalscene.media/Duxbury for information about Duxbury programming, including streaming and watching replays on Duxbury YouTube. We first have on our agenda an executive session. I will ask the clerk for a motion.
Do we not call, sorry. Do we do the, here, right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let me find it. Yeah, I do. Yep. Just bear with me 1 second as I get myself.
We'll bear with you, sir.
Will you bear with me? I move we enter into executive session pursuant to General Law, Section 30A, Section 21A and 3, for the purpose of discussing strategy with respect to collective bargaining, since an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating and bargaining position of the town, Duxbury DPW employees, AFC CME 93, Local 1700, Duxbury Permanent Fire Association, IAFF, Local 2167, Duxbury Free Library employees, SEIU, Local 888, Duxbury Police Union, MCOP, Local 376B, Duxbury Police Commanders Association, MCOP, Local 376, and finally the Public Safety Dispatchers, MCOP, Local 376A, and to enter into executive session pursuant of General Law, Section 30A, Section 21A, 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, town manager, and or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, town manager, and that the board reconvene in open session on or about 7 p.m.
Second.
All right, may I have, all right. I think I declare first.
Yes.
Right? Thank you.
Yep.
I lost that.
As chair, I declare the necessity for an executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, as to do so in an open session may have detrimental effect on the town's bargaining and negotiating position. I think I heard a second.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Fernando, aye.
Brian, aye.
Amy, aye.
Cindy, aye.
Michael, aye.
All right, and for the record, we are going to engage in our discussion for executive session in the Warehouser room, which is upstairs, but we will be returning to this room. Thank you, Warehouser, for executive session, returning to this room for open session at or about 7 o'clock. Everybody, thanks for joining. Apologize for the delay. We had some executive session matters to attend to that took a little bit longer than we expected, but we do have a procedural motion before we begin. Fernando?
I move that the Select Board adjourn the executive session and reconvene in open session.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Fernando, aye.
Brian, aye.
Amy, aye.
Cindy, aye.
Michael, aye.
All right, we are out of executive session. We are now in open session, the main component of our meeting. The first item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join us. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next is open forum. Anything from the board? Nothing?
Nothing from me.
Nothing.
No.
Okay. I do have two things. Rainey, you have an announcement.
Yep. I'd like to take, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to take just a moment to remember a coworker who sadly passed away last week. His name was Mark Lindgren. Mark worked for the town of Duxbury just a few months shy of his 20 years here for the Duxbury DPW. You may have known who Mark was in the last few months of his life. He worked at the transfer station. But prior to that, he was a terrific coworker. He was one of the people responsible. You may have seen him on the street, actually, painting the lines in front of the stop signs. He was a good guy, and he was a friend to many of us. He was a fair and reasonable negotiator in union sessions, and he will be missed. He was a friend of the town, the DPW, and many of us who worked with him. He will sorely be missed.
And Rainey, he was also an Air Force veteran, as I understand.
He was, yep, he was that too.
May we please observe a moment of silence in memory of Mark. Thank you. I just have one item to share. I wanted to thank the Senior Center and the South Shore Astronomical Society for a great celestial observation this past Saturday evening. Right here in the parking lot outside, about a half dozen high-power telescopes were set up to observe the Moon, Saturn, and even the Andromeda Galaxy, which was coming right at us. I estimate over 50 people took part. The weather conditions are perfect, so thank you to the Senior Center for a really neat event. All right, anything from the public? Open forum. This has nothing to do with anything that's on the agenda for this evening. These are anything you want to share with the board. We cannot discuss them. This is an opportunity to speak to the Select Board about matters not on the agenda. And I don't see anybody getting up, and I don't think we have anybody online. So let's move on to our next item of business. First new item is Fire Department swearing in of the new department members, and we will be led on this by Fire Chief Rob Reardon. Chief Reardon.
Good evening. I didn't realize the fan base that our new firefighters had, but we appreciate you all being here tonight. I'd first like to welcome Will Kelso up as I tell you a little bit about him. This is a day that makes us incredibly proud. Will Kelso first came to me when he was just 12 years old, asking if he could be a fire intern with our department. It was awfully young, but we saw something in him. We decided to take a chance, and in the 7th grade, he became an intern for the fire department. From that moment on, he had his eye on this day. We've watched Will grow in so many ways. While still in high school, he earned his EMT, his firefighter 1 and 2, and joined us as a call firefighter. He went on to graduate from Duxbury High School and was accepted into Fordham University. While at Fordham University, did we lose us? We're still there? No, we're still there. Okay, good. Just checking. While at Fordham, he was offered an incredible opportunity to join FDNY EMS. We even traveled to New York to watch him graduate with FDNY, and at that time I had thought he had found his permanent home. Luckily, after being in New York for several years, Will chose to come back to Duxbury. During that time, he simultaneously served as a call firefighter, a 911 dispatcher, and with the harbor master. All while he was working to earn his paramedic certification with the ultimate goal of being hired as a full-time member of our department. Will starts the Fire Academy in December. I'd now like to ask Tara Wakefield to come up to administer the oath of office.
If you could please repeat after me. I, please state your name,
I, William Kelso,
do solemnly swear
that
I will uphold and defend
I will uphold and defend
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts,
and the bylaws of the town of Duxbury,
and the bylaws of the town of Duxbury,
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform
all the duties imposed upon me
all the duties imposed upon me
as
a Duxbury firefighter,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Can I do it over?
This is great. We should have this kind of audience all the time. I'd now like to welcome up Jane Kelso, who's his mom, who will pin him with the badge. There you go, Mom. You're welcome.
Thank you.
And congratulations to the Kelso family.
Yes.
All right. I'd like to welcome up Jake Warmington. Jacob Warmington grew up in the town of Halifax and has dedicated his career to public safety. He worked as a Halifax firefighter for 5 years. He became a paramedic in the spring of 2024 while serving full-time with the Halifax Fire Department. And he also works as a per diem paramedic at Carver EMS. When we posted the opening for firefighter paramedic, 3 different members of our department came to me and personally recommended Jake. That speaks volumes about his character and reputation. We are fortunate to have such an incredible group of firefighters, and when you have great people, they attract great people. A funny side note, when we started hiring the hiring process, a neighboring chief had said to me he was going to hire Jake before I had a chance. And he said, "May the best department win." Jake starts the fire academy in December. And above all, Jake wanted me to mention he's most proud of his role as husband to his wife Megan and his loving father to his son Judson. We are proud to welcome him to the Duxbury Fire Department. If I can ask Tara to come up.
I, please state your name,
I, Jake Warmington,
do solemnly swear
that
I will uphold and defend
I will uphold and defend
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts,
and the bylaws of the town of Duxbury,
and the bylaws of the town of Duxbury.
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform
I will faithfully and impartially perform
all the duties imposed upon me
all the duties imposed upon me
as
as a Duxbury firefighter,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God. Thank you.
We're going to welcome his wife Megan up to pin him.
Congratulations, welcome.
Thank you so much.
So I want to close this by getting you to think about something. Since both of these firefighters joined us in July, they've both already saved a life. Imagine if they weren't here. Imagine the outcome if our community didn't have trained firefighter paramedics ready to respond. This is why staffing is paramount. This is why training and preparing our people matters. Because nothing, absolutely nothing, can replace a firefighter paramedic in the moment when life hangs in the balance. So tonight, We not only swore in 2 members of our family, we celebrate the lives they have already touched and the countless others they will impact in the years ahead. And as we welcome them, we also recognize all of the Duxbury firefighters, the dedicated men and women standing over here, whose training, commitment, and courage continue to protect and save lives in our community every single day. Thank you very much. Okay, all right. We're not done yet. Last thing. So before we leave, I wanted to share an email that we got. It's unbelievable the amount of lives that these firefighter paramedics touch. Many times I can't share with you because of HIPAA. We can't share personal stories, but I can tell you in just the last year, the amount of lives that they have saved is really incredible. But I got a great message, I think it was on Saturday night, or maybe it was Friday night, from a mom, and I want to share this with you. On the morning of Wednesday, September 24th, about 7:45 a.m., I made a frantic 911 call after my daughter collapsed to the floor. The team arrived to West Street in no time and rushed her to the hospital. On the way, the crew had to administer CPR. Their quick actions unequivocally saved her life. No one can argue that. It is because of the incredible work of everyone who responded that morning that my daughter is still alive. At first, the outlook was not good. She coded again in the ER, but my daughter has fought hard against all odds, every step of the way, astounding the doctors and nurses. She is alive today because of the life-saving measures taken in the ambulance. She still has hurdles to cross, but she should make a full recovery. My daughter Kelly is hoping to come by once she is home and recovered more to personally thank everyone. Duxbury is incredibly lucky to have such highly skilled EMTs and paramedics. You are an asset to your profession. And then, do you want me to say her name?
Yes, she has to.
The Gittleman family is forever grateful to everyone involved. Sincerely, Roberta Millward. That's one of many lives that we've been able to touch. I'm glad to be able to share it. And I'd just like to recognize the people that were on that call. Breyer, right? Matt Breyer. You can raise your hand. Firefighter Paramedic Breyer. Jake Warmington, our newest firefighter. Dan Doherty, Kevin Heath. That's 4. Am I missing one more? And then finally, Captain Hussey, who's not here. But that just shows, I'll just give you a quick example. People look at an ambulance and think two people go on the ambulance to take care of patients. We needed to send 4 people, as we do on a regular basis. When we have critical patients, we throw as many paramedics in if we're able to make a difference and save someone's life. So thank you very much to the group of you.
Thanks very much, Chief Reardon. Will, Jake, welcome. Congratulations, glad to have you aboard. All right, next on our agenda is a discussion with the Alderman Kindred regarding partnership with the town of Dorking, England, and a vote and approval on a twinning agreement. This will be presented by Alden House Executive Director Desiree Mobed. Ms. Mobed. She's coming. Right up to the mic so the folks at home can hear you. Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you so much for having the opportunity to present this. So I am here tonight to bring to your attention a draft proposal from the town of Dorking and the Dorking and District Town Twinning Association to formally twin with the town of Duxbury. This proposal was first introduced back in 2021 by the then Select Board member, David Madigan, following an invitation from Dorking and its Twinning Association. Coordination between the two towns began back in 2019 during planning for the 400th anniversary. Dorking is the ancestral home of 6 Mayflower passengers, including Priscilla Mullins Alden and Peter Brown, 2 of them that helped found this town of Duxbury. Their legacy is in the historical connection between our two communities. And since then, we've had a wonderful partnership that has blossomed. We've enjoyed student pen pal exchanges, which I think we included one in your package, several museum collaborations, outreaches by the Senior Center, and visits with respective Rotary Club members. Looking ahead to America's 250th commemoration, our friends in Dorking have expressed interest in helping be part of that milestone. This partnership will formally honor our shared heritage and facilitate future cultural and educational outreaches. On behalf of the Alden Kindred and the District Town Twinning Association, we respectfully ask that the Select Board review this twinning agreement, recommend any desired changes, and resolve to approve the final agreement when presented by Dorking. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Moved. Any questions from the board?
No.
All right, this is a fantastic opportunity. It's one of the fun things we do in municipal
Yes.
government, is to be able to connect our kids with others abroad. And those, do they actually write letters, or is it just emails these
They
days?
do, oh, no, this is all about writing letters.
That's excellent.
No emails.
So for the folks at home and those in the room, to understand what the agreement is about, I'll call on the clerk to read the proposed partnership agreement, and then we'll vote on the proposed language.
Sister Towns Partnership Agreement. The towns of Dorking and Duxbury are linked through the narrative of English migration to New England colonies in the 17th century. In particular, the migration of William Mullins and his daughter Priscilla on the Mayflower in 1620. William Mullins lived in West Street, Dorking, and his daughter and husband, John Alden, were one of the first families to build a home in Duxbury. Whereas the people of the towns of Dorking and District and Duxbury share similar goals of international cooperation, mutual prosperity, and world peace, and whereas they believe it to be in their collective interest to broaden and strengthen ties between the two towns, and whereas they place similar values on cultural and faith-based understanding, improvement of social and environmental stewardship, and commitment to skilling and educating future generations of our peoples, and whereas they will identify activities common to all that can generate new initiatives to further social, cultural, and faith-based relationships, and whereas the purpose of this relationship is to increase tourism, youth, cultural, recreational interests, faith-based exchange, and educational linkage for both towns, and whereas the people of both towns are committed to mutual support for organizing and developing the experiences, common activities, and future programs of this sister town relationship. Now, therefore, we, the chair of Dorking and District Town Twinning Association and the Select Board of the Town of Duxbury, do believe that this partnership will further contribute to the cause of world peace and to the development of friendly relations between the peoples of the United Kingdom and the United States and our two towns. Further, we affix our signatures on this declaration to establish our relationship as sister towns.
Any comments or questions from the board on the draft resolution?
No questions.
I did not hear anything about tea on this.
No tea.
All right. May I have a motion?
I move that the Select Board approve the Sister Town Partnership Agreement between the Town of Dorking, England, and the Town of Duxbury, MA, as presented.
I have motion and second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Ms. Mobed.
Thank you very
Good luck.
much.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is, I think, the main event that you're all here for. This is discussion pertaining to the proposed battery farm. This will be presented by Chris Zymek. One thing I do want to include in our discussion this evening, there is, the state, I understand, is seeking comments. There's a comment period from the Department of, I believe, Public Utilities. If you're not familiar with that, I have some information that I can pass along. It's not related directly to this proposal, but it is information I received in connection with tonight's event, and I'll be happy to pass that along. So, Rainey, do you have anything before we invite Mr. Zymek?
Yes, just briefly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As many of you may or may not know, the board has decided to appeal the decision that was handed down, and we are still awaiting a court date. And that has, as we're waiting, I had the opportunity to meet with Chris and a couple of his colleagues, and he asked if he could come to the board and present. This is an important issue, and I thought this would be a perfect opportunity, and the chair was kind enough to make sure that we had this room, because we want to make sure that everybody's concerns are met and heard. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I would yield to Chris.
All right, Mr. Zymek. If you'd kindly introduce yourself and maybe preface what,
Move this over so I can address everyone, or just?
wherever you're comfortable.
Yeah, okay.
There's a little bit of slack in that line, I think. There you go.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you for having us and giving us this platform as well to talk about this topic that I think we're all very well aware of. And what we're going to go over today is a culmination of information that the entire group, many of them here, have helped put together to discuss and bring to you all today. Also, we want to thank our neighbors in the town for showing up. We appreciate it. This moment, I think, is important, not only for the folks on West Street, but for the entire town of Duxbury. I do want to start by acknowledging something very important first. The town of Duxbury has already made their position clear. When this project was presented to them in 2023, they said it doesn't belong here, and we agree. But the fight just isn't at the local level, and what we're dealing with here with various boards and educating our town, it's also at the state level. So what we need to do from here on out is to keep doing what we're doing, raise our voices, ask questions, so that we can all speak and hopefully make a change, make a difference, not for Duxbury, but for the state and other communities who are facing this. The other thing I want to, I should say we want to say, is our message remains the same to our neighbors at 711 West Street, who this project is being built on their lot. They still have the opportunity to do the right thing for their neighbors, for their community. They've been residents of Duxbury for over 2 decades and have children of their own who were raised and grew up on West Street, just like many folks here in this room. It's a little bit hard. It's a little bit hard to imagine standing here actually and having this conversation. I've never really been an activist myself. I think a lot of us, I can speak for a lot of the group here, and talking about the possibility of an industrial-grade battery facility being built in a residential neighborhood. Now, something that's really clear about this is we don't oppose the technology. We oppose the location, the logic, and frankly, the carelessness of this project. That's what we're here to talk about. And we're here not just in this room, but wherever we've had our message be clear around town and around the state. The first time we were actually exposed to this was at a Concom meeting back in August 19th. That was, I think, the first time we were curious and, what exactly is happening on our neighbor's property. We were able to catch someone from New Leaf Energy, the company who's putting in this facility, in the hallway and ask them, why here? Why in our, why in our neighborhood? There's plenty of lots we can show you. And the answer was simple and troubling. It was because it's easy. That was the answer we got. Because it's easy. They don't have to abide by the same zoning regulations in areas that approve these projects. And they don't have to also have the same level of investment versus finding a single household to pay them a little bit of money to make this project happen. In fact, on New Leaf's own website, prior to a few weeks ago, after they caught wind that this group knew about this project, they recommended on their site that these should not be built anywhere but industrial or commercial zones. And in fact, in a recent APA study, the Department of Energy has cautioned and recognized that town zoning across the country has not caught up to this type of technology. Sort of giving everyone a little bit of a caution and a pause that we should think these things through. Can you go to the next slide? So, there's some information, if you can see it, on what the scope of the project is. We're not, I think, here to talk necessarily about the scope, but what we have learned here is companies like New Leaf have exploited a tactic called zone creep. And what zone creep does is allows companies like them to take advantage of good-natured laws designed for solar energy in order to justify industrializing a residential neighborhood for profit. The problem, again, is not renewable energy. The problem is location. And in fact, this particular project has nothing to really do with solar energy. And it doesn't generate power of its own. It's simply a money-making scheme to put these things anywhere where they can fit. If you want to go to the next slide. What's happened so far is this project was announced in, I believe, 2023. The town of Duxbury denied it immediately. New Leaf Energy sued and won in land court. And then subsequently, the town of Duxbury has appealed it where it sits in land court today. Since that appeal, many of us have caught wind of this project and the groundswell that you have seen started. Maybe you have a bright yellow sign on your lawn, maybe your neighbor does as well too. Now, while all this plays out in land court, New Leaf is doing whatever they can to advance the ball forward, to get it as far as they possibly can on multiple fronts while this is tied up in land court, before the people of Duxbury can have their say in the matter. And that's why we're here, and that's why we've been doing this in multiple boards. This is not how responsible development happens. Now, let's discuss what's at stake here. And the risks we're talking about are serious, and they are well documented. We're not chasing conspiracy theories here. The risks are not theoretical. Across the country in similar type of facilities, there have been many failures. This technology is new and it is prone to fire. They call these thermal runaway fires, which you can't put out simply like any old household fire. They release toxic fumes and force evacuations as well as shelter-in-place notices for thousands of our citizens in other states. Some of these fires have burned for over 30 hours with also their suppression systems running for that period of time, like in East Hampton, New York. Some of them for many days, like in San Diego, California, 2 years ago. The environmental impact here is very clear. When this happens, it can contaminate our groundwater, which has access to our wells in town and our drinking supply. Also, in an ecosystem like Duxbury, this is conservation land. This is a coastal community. We have to approach projects like this with more precision than maybe other communities, especially in a residential neighborhood. And the other thing is we have no guarantee of what happens when this project reaches the end of its life cycle. Not one of these facilities has gone from start to decommissioning, ever. And now we're pushing this into people's backyards. That doesn't seem very logical. And there's no clear plan that they've put on their NOI for what happens when the lease ends or if the company becomes not viable because of subsidies drying up and changing political environments. That means the cleanup is on us. And we already know, what happens in town where we got stuck with a PFAS mess in some of our wells, and we have a chance to change the outcome, a similar outcome here. Additionally, what we're talking about is an installation, an industrial installation, within 100 feet of our neighbors' backyards. Families who've been here for decades, some new families as well, whose children are playing within 100 feet of this facility. There is no good reason that this facility cannot be built at a substation or an existing solar field already correctly zoned for something like this. Zoning for this is also in its infancy. There's no reason to push this in residential neighborhoods when the safety effects of these things have not been researched and they're not at the level of maturity. And also the environmental, health, and safety concerns, including proximity to families, to homes, proximity to Route 3, limits our town's ability to resource for potential disaster. Now, before I turn it over to my colleague here to talk a little bit, we respectfully have a few asks today for the board based on our findings. Before I turn it over to Sean Sullivan, the first ask is that we ask the town select board to adopt a townwide moratorium for this project. And there is already strong precedent for this. Over 60 of these moratoriums across 12 different states relating directly to BEST projects have been enacted in the past year. Because this is tied up in land court, this allows the town, our town, the time to act. It allows us to gather information to study environmental impacts on the site itself, but also town-wide. This isn't just about West Street. This is about the town of Duxbury. It's about other communities in the state. This also allows us to craft appropriate regulations and zoning laws, ensuring no other neighborhood in Duxbury is met with a similar challenge in the future. Our fear is that if these things get rubber stamped in advance, this will not be the only time. The fight that New Leaf is putting into this is showing that this is an attractive scheme for this company and many companies like them. Additionally, that gives us time to fully understand the safety implications, working with our fire department, our water department, and also the Massachusetts State Police, given its proximity to Route 3. Our second ask, which Sean will elaborate on, is that the town explore a bylaw change, one that ensures reasonable and responsible planning for projects like this in the future. This includes the size, scope, and placement of these types of facilities as new technologies like this become rapidly available, and so that our zoning laws can catch up and protect our citizens. More oversight for our town elected officials and trusted board members to inspect, approve, or deny projects like this that affect their neighbors. And of course, concrete safety protocols that cover everything from fire prevention to risk mitigation, as well as addressing decommissioning things like this. We're not leaving industrial grade batteries all over our neighborhoods in 7, 8, 10 years. So, before Sean takes the floor, our message tonight is simple. We support innovation, we support renewable energy, but we do not support these things in our neighborhoods. Duxbury has made its position clear, and now we must ensure the state hears it too. Thank you all for coming. Sean, give the floor to you.
Before Sean takes the floor, Chris, can you please clarify, you mentioned we, us a little bit. Can you clarify for the board here what group you're representing?
Yeah, 100%. We're calling ourselves Stop the Bat. Yeah, raise your hand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stop the Battery Farm 25. It's our West Street neighborhood.
Okay.
We've sort of just got together, people we see, you know, walking around, getting the mail, and all got together and decided that, you know, we need to, you know, create a consortium of sorts in order to meet this challenge.
Okay, great, thank you. Sean, go right ahead.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you to the board for having us here tonight, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. As you just had asked, Mr. Zymek, who he's representing in this, I want to be clear, I am an attorney. My wife and I live on West Street, but I'm not here in the representative capacity. No one's my client, so I'm speaking out as a butter and a concerned resident as well. I wanted to provide a little bit of an update on the legal posture of where things currently stand. So the Duxbury Energy LLC case the decision was rendered on summary judgment by Judge Resnick in the land court back in June. That case has now entered the appeals court, and as of today, the brief for the town of Duxbury is due November 3rd. The brief for New Leaf Energy is due on December 3rd. Typically, between those periods of time, one side or the other is going to ask for an extension of time, given, especially in this case, this is a full court panel, so it's going to be decided by not just a 3-judge panel. So there's probably going to be, I would say, at least a 30-day extension in the usual course and something like that on each side. Once both the briefs are in, the court is going to schedule an oral argument typically within 4 to 6 months after that. For a full court panel decision, it's typically about 130 days following the oral argument. The reason I bring up these deadlines and this time frame is because it's important that we understand how much time is ahead of us, but also how much time we have to deal with the issues that we presently are facing. So the way that this case came down from the land court is what's called the case of first impression. So Judge Resnick had rendered summary judgment on a novel issue of law. And that was based off the interpretation of the Dover Act, which was implemented in 1985, but hasn't really been interpreted by a court until 2022. And this is what was called the Tracer Lane case. And what that case ultimately did was it discussed how the legislature, how the municipal governments need to interpret the provisions of the Dover Amendment with respect to solar energy and ancillary use. The Duxbury Energy case comes along, and the way that the appeals court judge rendered the decision on that case was essentially that Duxbury had an outright prohibition against the sort of standalone solar battery energy storage systems. When you read the legislative intent, when you read the actual Duxbury bylaw, it doesn't seem to be the case that there's an outright prohibition on it, but now we are where we are with the matter before us, and we have to make a decision on, do we revise the bylaws, do we amend them to actually provide for an overlay district? Because the commentary, all of the review I've seen based on the judge's decision is that because there was, in their view, an outright prohibition, there is no remand back to the municipal level to seek further review. So typically, if there's a zoning decision that goes in a 40A17 appeal, once it gets sent back down to the town, if the decision was considered untenable, then from there, the town has the guidance from the court on how they want to proceed. And that could factor into whether it's waiving certain order of conditions, whether there was restrictions that were too stringent. So there is some flexibility there. Here, the land court has essentially said that there is no remand back to the town because there is no bylaw. And because there's no bylaw, the building department in the future can be forced to just hand out building permits for these because there's no actual town level hearing and standards rather to implement the health and safety and welfare of these. The only carve out to the Dover Amendment is exactly that, health, safety, and welfare. The restrictions can reasonably provide that they can be restrictions so long as it's in furtherance of the health, safety, and welfare of the community. That's really the key component to this. We talk about location. We're not saying we just don't want this in our backyard. We don't want this where it's going to be somewhere dangerous. There's clearly more suitable areas where this could be implemented, and there's certain regulations that could be implemented too that will provide for better safety standards. The importance of the fact that this was a case of first impression is paramount, because every town around us, if you look at all the bylaw submissions that have been sent to the Attorney General's office, a lot are getting turned down, a lot are getting subject to more scrutiny and additional review, and that's because no one knows what to do with this. This is an old statute that's now being advanced much faster than anyone had anticipated. I believe the state's agenda is to be zero emissions by 2050. I could be slightly incorrect on that number, but it's somewhere in that time frame. So it's 25 years to go zero emissions from where we currently stand right now, which means these facilities, these storage facilities, the whole implementation of all the green energy, which in theory does sound like a good concept, but it's a matter of what impact, at what rate, and how is that going to impact the citizens. So really, I think what's going on here is they're advancing a lot of new technology, as Chris was saying, without really doing the due diligence into, are these safe? Have these been studied? We have minimal feasibility studies on, we don't know ultimately long-term what the impacts are going to be, but we also know that based on that judge's decision, they're rapidly expanding the interpretation of the law under that. There's lingering questions. For example, if these batteries need to be replaced every 8 years, what's gonna happen to the batteries once they're midway through their term? This is a 20-year lease that New Leaf is proposing at 711 and 0 West Street. So midway through that term, before midway, they're gonna have to replace those batteries. Where are they gonna go? Does that mean that because they're only using a half acre of this 5-acre lot, that they're gonna be then considered ancillary and accessory to further battery storage use? And then they're gonna say, well, we have the land here already, let's expand on that and store them there. So I think there's just a really big need to do a deep dive into the bylaws to see, how we can get to be in compliance with, there's no question about it, the Dover Act stays, under the Zoning Enabling Act, I mean, there's no way we can have an outright prohibition on it, but the issue is how do we protect the health, safety, welfare of our town while also being in compliance with the state law. And that's why we're asking that there be a planning board review and some proposed amendments and revisions to the bylaws as they exist.
Thank you. And to be clear, the select board itself doesn't have any jurisdiction concerning the proposal. The purpose of tonight's meeting is so the select board can become familiar with the issue.
Right.
And so that we can better coordinate with other boards in town. With that said, is there anybody else from your, I guess, semi-formal group that would like to address us? Because I would like to hear from neighbors if they'd like to address us, and I would also entertain comments from New Leaf if they're here, or the property owners if they're here.
Can I just ask a question?
Mike, go ahead.
Any other towns have a bylaw?
Yes, I believe it's Carver, Wareham. Carver, Ware, I don't have the list off the top of my head, I think
It's on the presentation.
it's in the, the text there. We have spoken with some of the legislative aides at the State House, and they've actually been providing us some drafts of the updated bylaws. We have discussed engaging an attorney who's gonna help also put his input into some proposed bylaws, and we'd like to be, active participants in that process as well, too.
Ware approved, Wilbraham approved, Lancaster approved, Shrewsbury approved, Hadley approved, Blandford in progress.
Okay.
Bylaws, correct?
Thank you.
All right.
Could I ask another?
Amy.
I'm a little, so one of your asks of this board was to consider a moratorium, and I'm a little bit unclear as to what a benefit of a moratorium would be at this point, since an application has already been filed for this. I don't believe it would be subject to any type of moratorium at this point.
I don't have a clear answer for that. But I think that the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction is separate from the zoning boards in part on the moratorium. So if there's a moratorium on this while there's a town review on the bylaws, I think that that's just saying that we're gonna hold off on granting any building permits ultimately at the end of the day until this is done, but.
I'm just
I could be
suggesting
mistaken.
that may be, may come into play for future applications for the same use, but I don't think it would, and again, we can speak to town council on that, but I don't believe that it would have any impact on the current proposal, because it's already been applied for.
I think that there's a difference of opinion on that. I think
Okay.
that ultimately if it were to come back down.
That's what
from-
lawyers do, I get it. We know.
I think if it were ultimately to come back down the pipeline from the appeals court, assuming that they were not going to be overturning the land court's decision, that at that point in time, if there was an overlay district that were created, in that if there was properly implemented bylaws that don't unreasonably restrict the nature of the usage here, that at that point in time, it could be rejected.
Fernando.
Who would enact a moratorium? Would that be the select board or would that be the planning board?
Well, usually a moratorium is enacted in connection with an application process that exists.
Okay,
Right.
So if one doesn't exist, I don't know how you can
moratorium.
have a moratorium on it. Sean, I do have a question for you. Are you familiar with comments that the Massachusetts Association of Health Boards submitted to DEP suggesting that local boards of health also have jurisdiction over this?
I'm not
Okay,
familiar with
I'd be
that.
happy to share that with you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any questions from the board? All right. Chris or Sean, do you have anything else to add before we open it up to other neighbors?
Just one more comment on the moratorium piece, and
And thank you for the information on, of course, we're here also to be educated on the process as well too, so thank you for that. The purpose behind the request for the moratorium is that the intention, the strategy here for companies like New Leaf are to advance as much of the project as they can outside of what's being tied up in land court. An example is the topic that was in the Concom meeting about the road that they're building. So our fear, at least for the folks that we not formally speak for, is that the New Leaf Energy Corporation is going to continue poking and prodding and advancing permits and discussions and sort of get this thing to the 1 yard line, making it sort of easier for land court to make a decision of, you know, we've already invested so much into this, the town has already allowed us to build the road, the town has already allowed us to erect the fence, allowed us to do this, allowed us to do that, and it doesn't give the town, the board, and also the community itself the time we need to really make sure that this thing is safe and right for this location and right for the town. So that's what we would ask for a moratorium, is that any project related to 711 Zero West Street be halted, if that's respectfully the right thing, so that it can be played out in land court and it does give us time to understand the impact a little bit further.
Thank you. I understand what you're trying to do. I totally understand. I'm not sure how we can get there because, as the chair pointed out, you need a bylaw in which to cease acting, which is the moratorium, which I don't think there is one. So there's a lot of questions here, but I understand where you're trying to go. I think we're all very receptive to the concerns, and at least I am. And I'm glad that the chair also brought up the Board of Health, because I do think that they have extraordinary powers.
They have more
and-
powers than a lot of
And
people, boards
they
have.
could be a big ally here.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Sure. I'll entertain comments from folks who'd like to address us. Both Sean and Chris provide us a lot of information. If you'd like to come forward to the microphone so everybody can hear you, including folks at home. We're particularly interested in anything new to the conversation. If you'd kindly introduce yourself with your name and street.
I'm John Higley, 45 Acorn Street. I did want to make sure we were clear. The DPU is the enforcing or the judicial part of this process. That the Department of Energy is the one that's sort of encouraging it and making it all happen, but the DPU sort of is the judge. And they are welcome to public comment. I was trying to get the information on, I think it's on their website, on how to give public comment, but I think that's a really effective tool to communicate, because the DPU, the Department of Public Utilities, asks and requires a proponent, a developer, to do this, to come to the town, go through the process, and if the town agrees, then the process sails. If the town disagrees, then the process goes back and forth as it is, just as is happening. But that process, they're required, the developer's required to go through that process, to try to go through all the town bylaws and process. And if it fails, it goes back to them, and then they have the authority to overrule the town in some cases. But they also listen. They want to make sure the process is done correctly and that they're hearing correctly. So, I don't have the information here, but I think that's an important piece of information to get out. At the Conservation Committee meeting, the proponent offered to have a public information meeting and wanted and negotiate some time to do that. And I strongly suggest the town host that, so that it is so that it adheres to the rules of public meetings, and then what's said is recorded, and that the town is the host and the moderator, not the proponent. That's my suggestion. Yeah, but I suggest that the town hosts that, or holds it. I will repeat one thing. Mr. Ziomek said that zoning for this type of thing has not caught up. That's a really important thing. It really hasn't. I was in the industry of cleaning up groundwater contamination around energy sites, primarily gas stations, bulk terminals, pipelines, refineries. There's a famous case of Texas Instruments built a semiconductor plant out in the boondocks, way out in the country, because there was nothing around it. So they didn't really pay too much attention to zoning, and they built these semiconductor plants, which are chemical plants, as is a battery storage. Battery storage is a chemical plant. It's a chemical process. As time goes by, the town of Richardson, Texas, is built up and full of residential. It's surrounded by homes. And now they're complaining about the truck traffic and the possible emissions, and there's a big chemical plant right in the middle of our residential town. That's where zoning completely failed. In my day, gas stations were built on every street corner, and you had 4 competitors. And that's, oh, what a great thing. Now we found out that gas stations can leak. They can have tanks and pipes and become a hazard. So now we're trying to recover ourselves from that brilliance of retail marketing of energy. So energy is, we use energy, we need energy, it's got to be handled, but we have a history of rushing into different energy projects. There's gas turbines. There's a battery storage site being built in Medway, Mass, next to a gas turbine power generating plant. The one in Carver is next to a huge a substation, also in Medway, but also in Carver, it's next to a huge solar installation where they belong, where it's already a developed industrial site generating power. So there's different types of battery storage. Some work a lot better right next to them, some not so much, but they all have been envisioned as in industrial sites. So it's a bad idea to, and this should be in our letter to, our multiple letters, I hope, to DPU. Asking for a moratorium, I concur. I hope the town will invest in town council time to find out if a moratorium is a good strategy, if it's doable at all in this case for this specific proposed project. Sometimes moratoriums, if you get them, if you're granted them, then you're also, there's some rules that go along with it in some cases that say, and if at the end of the moratorium, if the process goes, we agree to go ahead with the project, to not fight it sometimes. So town council's opinion on whether it could be, whether this notice of intent is grandfathered in or not. So if that strategy works at all or not, I think that's worthy of town council opinion. And very much health and safety should be involved. In the proposed, there's some model zoning for this type of thing that are, in my opinion, terrible. They're proposed by the energy community, not by the town that has to live with these energy projects. So be cautious of the ones that people like me can Google and find quickly. They're I think, terribly biased. So I think that the town investing in zoning for this type of thing, we ought to be getting state help because the state wants these energy projects and zoning has not caught up for sure, or we'll wind up with gas turbines or gas transmission pipeline pump stations that spew, things into the air on occasion by mistake. There's a lot of things that have been done wrong in retrospect with energy projects. They can be done right, but the state, for projects like this, really ought to stick to obvious things like at substations and at gas turbine sites and things like that. Obvious things like that where it's already zoned, that makes a lot of sense. But for the state the DPU should surely not be pushing for them to go where zoning has not caught up. And that is very, very specific to the health and safety, which is in our zoning. We have zoning for wind, we have zoning for solar. This could be seen as an accessory, but not always. So that's a tricky argument. Again, I encourage town council's opinion on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike,
We've often written letters, particularly with the nuclear site down in Plymouth. Might this group want us to prepare a letter, or would you like to prepare one for us? We've often been given the framework of a letter with facts, and that could be addressed to DPU commissioners, the AG, and the governor on this. I don't know if we consider that as a board.
I
I'm
think we
speaking for
consider it-
myself.
Yeah, if we can, I just want town council's okay, given this is litigation, that doesn't prejudice our position, but with that said, that's a point well taken.
Yep,
Okay.
agree.
All right. Ms. Lynch Benetton, I know who you are, but if you could please introduce yourself with your street.
Sheila Lynch Benton in 344 West Street. I live at the edge of the 1 mile evacuation radius. And it's not well known, but on August 20th of this year, Commissioner of Mass DEP, Bonnie Heppel, wrote an 18-page letter giving guidance on BESS facilities. And that's battery energy storage. And in that letter, if you read through the weeds of it, it talks about giving priority to fire commissioners, chief firemen in a town to write a report. And it gives long guidance on how the local fire department can give guidance on whether a BESS facility is appropriate for their town, and it can become part of the record. And a lot of towns are doing this early as they're fighting in land court. So I would suggest the select board and the town manager read the 18-page letter, and particularly the area about giving fire chiefs status in writing about the problems with a facility, a BESS facility in a town, and that they write it up, disperse it to land court, add it to our court case, and let DOER, Division of Energy Resources, know about it. It's not well known. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, if you please introduce yourself.
No worries. Steve Walsh, 76 Tussock Brook Road. Sorry, I'm tired. Pat's won. I'm a fire protection specialist. I spoke with the conservation before, and I just want to re-educate everybody on kind of what you're up against. These facilities, there's nothing you can do to put the fire out once they go. There's nothing. There's nothing approved by the National Fire Protection. National Fire Protection Board is creating a new code called Code 855, which won't be ready for another year. Everything falls under Code 800 right now. Historically, over the past 5 years, because one of the arguments is, well, there hasn't been a lot of these fires. Well, if you had a hoverboard and it caught fire in a house, it wasn't a lithium battery fire. It was a house fire, which is a class 4. A lithium battery fire is a class 9. So the miscategorization of the number of fires that have happened as a result of this is a little bit off. Moving forward, they're starting to categorize these a little bit better. But what you're up against is really, really severe situations. For example, if you look at the 2 ships, one was in the Pacific, June of 2025, the Atlantic, 2022, filled with expensive cars, lithium batteries. They had to sink them because there's no way to put it out. Now, what caused the fire was not necessarily the lithium battery, if you will. It was the fact that the batteries were manufactured improperly. So the people putting in this facility, it may not be their fault, as much as I hate to say that to them, because to all my neighbors on West Street, I love you guys, but West Street sucks, okay? A lot of potholes, a lot of this, and I'm not trying to make a joke of it, but you have to remember, you have transportation to and from these facilities. So the roads, if you're bumping around, you're gonna have a problem. And I said it before and I'll say it again, it is not a question of if, it is a question of when. This is a warehouse. From what I'm told from this group, it's 5 metal storage containers. You put lithium iron batteries in metal storage containers, it's like a bomb. You're taking heat and you're putting it in. And the reason why you can't put a lithium battery fire out, because it's self-generating. It creates oxygen. That's why. It keeps burning. And the only way to put it out is literally an ocean of fresh water, because you can't use salt water, because there's salt in the lithium battery, and it reacts. So what we're looking at is ultimately, you saw it with Moore's Landing out in California, who is still having problems with this. This is, people that I talked to from New Leaf, the guy at the other meeting, I'm sorry, the carelessness at which this facility is being approached is disgusting. That they just think they can walk in and say, hey, let's put it over there. What do we need? My buddy's got a couple storage containers. And I'm not saying that that's how it's happening, but it feels like it. There's no plan. There's no plan for something like this. You're going to put metal storage containers. What are you going to put in there if the heat goes up? Because these also have to be temperature controlled. You can't go too cold. You can't go too hot. So metal storage containers, I mean, how are they going to do this? That's what I don't know. So I'm just here to tell you that bottom line, and I'll tell you a little bit about the hypocrisy of the state. So I have been working with the state for the past 4 years because, as you may know, every bus in the state of Massachusetts has to be electric by 2030. So I'm working with them because they've come to our group and they've said, okay, we need to build recharge facilities for these buses. What type of fire suppression do we put in there? You know what the answer is? None. There's nothing you can do. And they know it. So I just want to let you know kind of what you're up against. This is a very, very serious facility. There's a lot of carelessness that's going into how it's being built. They don't seem to be too serious about it. I don't know if any of them are here tonight, but you know, this is kind of an FU to the town if they're not willing to sit here and listen to the concerns here. So as somebody who's in this industry, as somebody who's been studying, working with the state on this, I'm telling you right now, if they're telling us to go F ourselves, we need to tell them to go F themselves. All right, thank
Yes, sir, if you'd introduce yourself for our record.
Sure, Matt Koenig, 100 Eagles Nest Road. I'm an interesting attendee. I earn my living with these systems. I've been in this industry for 16 years. There aren't many of me. I've done mobile systems, the first hybrid ship out of the Norwalk, Connecticut Aquarium 15 years ago. I did some of the first Tesla battery-backed systems 10 years ago. The most probably meaningful, culturally significant project was my team at Princeton Power Systems did the Alcatraz Island microgrid. Those aren't lithium, they were too expensive then. I've also worked in consulting. Steve, you may remember in 2019, there was one of the first meaningful energy storage issues was at a plant called McMicken in Arizona. I co-authored the root cause analysis. So I love this stuff. I earn my living doing it. And when I first heard about this, I was with the AEC, the Alternative Energy Committee, 2 years ago. I missed the meeting where New Leaf, and I know the founders of New Leaf. In fact, when they were at Borrego, I gave them their first primer on energy storage in 2013. They may not recall that, but I can assure you it's true. And I spoke with Wendell, who is the chair of the AEC. I was 10 years on the AEC. And I looked at the information they were given. Instantly, much of my reaction was sort of what Steve's was, which is, I make my living working with companies like New Leaf, and a couple of things came to mind, and that was they were kind of leaving them with the impression, and it was actually vocalized to me, and I had to, dispel them of this notion that they were leaving them with the impression that somehow if there was an outage, the town would have energy. And I had to quickly say, well, I won't get into the technical reasons why that's not true, but the answer to that is no, this is a for-profit venture. Hallelujah, it's a free country, great. And I said, that's not true. So that's a little misleading. That's sort of like a lie of omission, right? I said, so now I'm a little bit tweaked, like what's going on here? And then I looked at the site. I actually drove by it a few weeks ago, and I connected with Jake when I saw this on Facebook, because I said, wait a minute. 2 years ago, the AEC suggested that this get pushed back and the zoning board look at it, and we need more information. And there's all volumes of information that I see on a regular basis, bidding on projects, both to build them and provide equipment and integrate these systems, that I haven't even heard have been presented. I haven't seen the names of some of this documentation in anything that I've read. And I drove by the site, and I looked at it and I just shook my head, because one, there's a substation a half a mile down the line. So saying this is the only site on the line in Duxbury that's viable, I'd love to see why that's true. That's number one. Number two, I don't know any developer. Energy storage projects have 12 to 24 month, from my perspective, sales cycles. This is why they pay me such a big salary, because the commissions never come. So they, or so they think they're paying me a very big salary. But so they kind of have hair on them to start with, right? They're not simple. They're not like solar projects where it's unidirectional, they don't degrade, they generally don't catch on fire unless they're wired wrong, but the sum and substance of the system is not inherently active. It's a fairly benign, passive mechanism. As Steve pointed out, this is a chemical reaction, like any battery, right? And I couldn't understand. I looked at it, and I, so I know the hurdles that are just inherent with doing one of these projects, and the hair that's on it just to start. And this site is like Sasquatch. I don't understand and I haven't heard or read anything that would have me say, oh, okay, well, of course, X, Y, and Z. Why they're dying on this hill? I don't understand it. And especially with the substation so close. So I start wondering, like, what else is going on here? Not to be a conspiracy theorist or, assert that anybody's on the take or anything like that, but based on what I started my story with regard to the sort of passive allowance of the AEC to think there was an off-take for us. So there's kind of a history of obfuscation or allowed presumption. And that leads me to believe that maybe there's other things going on here that I don't know about. And across the country, our biggest hurdle for all of us that earn our living doing this are AHJs, authorities having jurisdiction. It's kind of interesting that this has even gotten to this point, to be honest, and that there's this loophole that I'd never heard of, and I haven't had a customer present a project to me where this loophole was being utilized. So it's all very new to me, if you can imagine, which surprised me, having done this for so long. I had a lot more hair and I was skinnier when I started. And to another point, a good friend of mine just texted me. He's just been assigned to the technical committee at NFPA about this. And my whole network, we're very pro this, and there's big upside to it, but not in a place like this. It's very, very puzzling to me. And I would tell you that you hear a lot about thermal runaway, and I'm not going to try and put the fear of God in you here. I spent 4 years at DNV when the safety group was just starting up because of the McMicken fire and explosion. And what we came to the realization was, first of all, they weren't in neighborhoods. That's A. So B, starting out, they're in areas that don't have these considerations. And what quickly came to the fore was that You may not like to hear this, but essentially it's let it burn and guard against detonation. You guard against explosion. That's the kicker. At McMicken, it was an older system, mid last decade. You know, there were no venting mechanisms. It was out in the desert in Arizona. The firefighters roll up. They don't know battery storage from, you know, a bread box. They just don't know. And it's a shipping container. And it propagated without flame. The bottom module in one rack had one bad cell, and the heat built, and the heat propagated up through one rack, and through that elevation of heat, you had off-gassing. The temperature elevated, the fire suppression system went off. Steve, Novec. Novec's heavier than the gases. So the Novec compressed the gases to the bottom of the container. It's under pressure. The firefighters showed up, opened the container doors, inrush of oxygen. 100 feet later, the doors and the firefighters were thrown against a chain link fence. That's one story. I make my living with this. Much advancement has taken place since then. I can assure you of that. But I can also assure you that they should never be sited in a site like I drove by. So I'm kind of for it and against it, I guess. So if the board ever needs more information, if there's a conflict of interest, I'll recuse myself. I don't think there is in this case. I'm not bidding this for New Leaf. I'm not involved with this project financially or vocationally in any way, shape, or form. So I don't have any inside knowledge of this particular project, but obviously I have, whether I like it or not, what can loosely be termed a career, a fair amount of knowledge about how these things work and how they go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will clarify for the record, we invited a representative of New Leaf to attend, Carolyn Spicer. Is Carolyn here?
She's online.
She's on, okay, she's on the line. Carolyn, would you like to address the board?
Hi, I'm going to have Erin from New Leaf speak.
Okay, did you say Erin or Aaron? Erin.
Erin, E-R-I-N.
Okay.
Yep, she's going to raise her hand.
Sure, and we'll have Erin introduce herself for our record.
Hi, everybody. My name is Erin Kendrick. I'm a director of development over at New Leaf. I apologize I couldn't make it down there tonight to be with you guys, but
Erin, let me stop you just for a second. Can everybody hear Erin? No. Erin, it's a little quiet in here. Can you speak up, and then I'll ask the local scene if we can crank up the volume a little bit. All right, Erin, go right ahead. Thank you.
Is this a little bit better? Can you
Yes.
hear me better now?
Yes, thank you.
You said yes? Okay. Okay. So my name is Erin Kendrick. I'm a director of development here at New Leaf. I've been working on this project along with the gentleman that you guys all saw at the Conservation Committee. I was really coming tonight to listen and to hear your concerns, and I thank the board for letting us know about this meeting and the neighbors for sharing their concerns and thoughts. I've been taking a lot of notes, and we have an information session. As I think somebody mentioned, it's on October 20th from 4 to 6 p.m. at the Duxbury Library. We will have a presentation from a former firefighter who is really well versed in these types of projects. And we work with them to design them in a way that makes sure that they are safe, because your safety is important to us as we're designing them. I realize some of your comments were that you don't think that we're designing these responsibly, but I assure you that we are behind the scenes. And I appreciate, kind of being able to hear and listen to what you're doing, and we'll be sure to cover all of those things in that session, and it will also be an open house. So I will be there as well as some of my colleagues so that we can answer any questions, and we really look forward to hearing from you all then.
Aaron, the presentation at the Duxbury Free Library on the 20th, what time is that, please?
It's 4 p.m. to 6 p.m.
Okay.
And we'll work to get a little bit more in the Duxbury Clipper so that there's more information out there. But there will be a presentation and then, as I said, kind of an open house so that we can answer people's questions.
Okay, thank
Kind of
you.
one-on-one.
Does anybody from the board have questions for Ms. Kendrick? Fernando?
I do. Hi, Aaron. My name is Fernando Guitar. Just a quick question for you. Why are you citing this project in a residential area?
Yeah, so the main reason is because the state has identified certain electrical feeders that are priority that they think are going to impact the grid reliability the most, as well as, you know, kind of helping put more renewables on the grid. The feeder that runs through that site is one of those feeders. And so it's there. The site, if you actually go down there, it's kind of tucked away. You wouldn't be able to see it. We'd be following all the noise guidelines. You wouldn't be able to hear it. And then where it is on the site, there's like some topography that has the houses further up. And so we thought with it being tucked away, it's far from houses. It follows the NFPA guidelines for how far it needs to be from those. And so that was the intention, is really just to be at that feeder. It's going to connect right there at the feeder that's behind the, like right there by Route 3, and in the back there won't be any power lines that are coming up to West Street. And so we thought that made it a good location for a project.
So, but I'm sure there's many other feeders in commercial areas or industrial areas. Why can't you cite it there?
So there's not within Duxbury. We are citing batteries in other areas and in different types of zones. We do have some in commercial zones and in industrial zones, but this feeder in particular has good interconnection, which is why we targeted this one.
But so it seems, Aaron, that you're looking to cite it in Duxbury. That seems to be your driver. Is that right?
No, I'm just saying the industrial areas of Duxbury are not on this specific feeder, so we couldn't put it in the industrial area of Duxbury. We didn't set out to do a battery in Duxbury specifically necessarily. We were just looking at all of the options of electrical feeders and which ones had good interconnection outlook per our analysis, and this was one that did.
There's an electrical substation close to the roundabout there at 3. Why can't you cite it at an electrical substation?
Mm-hmm. Yes, there is. This project, we needed to stay within a mile of the substation, and this is within a mile of that substation.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you, Aaron.
Nope, board first, please.
Yeah.
Amy?
I understand that this application is, you're using the term renewables and for the storage of renewable or green energy. Can you tell me what percentage of the energy that will be stored at the facility or proposed facility is actually coming from green energy?
You mean at this specific energy storage facility?
Yes, how much of the energy that you're proposing to store is coming from renewable or green energy?
Yeah, so the energy specifically that's coming into this one is, I cannot tell you the exact percentages, and it's going to change over time as the energy mix changes across the grid. There's about 22% that's solar on the Massachusetts grid. And so when energy comes onto the grid, it doesn't, it's not like solar goes one direction and energy molecules coming from a different type of generation it all comes onto the grid and it's used up. So, but the reason that you need standalone storage, like energy storage that's not paired with gas or renewables, is because it needs to go in some areas where there's high load. This location was identified as one of those, and there's not room to do like a solar field there as well. And so by putting standalone energy storage in these kinds of places, it allows more energy to go onto the grid and then to be collected by energy storage during the hours when renewables are higher and load is lower. So that's usually during the day when the solar is generating. That's when the energy storage facility will be collecting the energy, and then it will discharge in the evenings when there's higher load, but the sun is setting, everybody's putting their air conditioning on in the evening, cooking dinner, coming home from work, those kinds of things. So
Thank you. Thank you.
it may not, it's, it's not directly tied to a solar facility, but that's kind of by design, to be putting these into places where overall they're helping the grid and collecting that energy. And they're in different locations where they can be discharging onto areas where there's higher peak loads.
Thank you. There was a lot of narrative there that was beyond what I was actually asking, but I believe what I heard from you was that approximately 22% of the energy that will be stored is currently coming from renewables.
Yes, and that will change and shift over time.
Sorry, that's wrong.
Go ahead, Mike.
If the entire state gets 22% renewable energy, there is a site where you can actually go. I can look it up and find it for you, that you can see by day, like what percentage on your house.
But my point being is that it's a small amount of renewable, which is, so I'm just trying to make the point that it's not all renewable energy that is being stored, which, that's my point. I'm not,
Our electrical grid, which is based on like coal, gas generator.
So we're going to go to Mike next. Please hold that comment. Thank you.
I just have a question for
Go ahead,
the young
Mike.
woman. Are you still here?
I'm still here.
Okay. So you said that you do not specifically, necessarily, you did not choose Duxbury. So those are two different words, specifically and necessarily. So I'll ask you directly, did New Leaf target Duxbury, and why?
We targeted specific electrical feeders that were on the list of heavily loaded feeders, because that's where the Department of Energy Resources was identifying that were the most in need of energy storage and could benefit the state the most. That was our starting point. One of those electrical feeders was in Duxbury, and so we looked for sites that were along that feeder, but not more than a mile away from the substation. This site was one of those. This site was the one that we found. We thought it was a really good one for energy storage for that reason. That's how we did our prospecting. It was looking at where is the state identifying that the need is, and then where can we find sites that we could put an energy storage facility safely. And this one in Duxbury was one that we found as part of that effort.
You all set, Mike?
Yeah.
Cindy?
Yeah, you found this site in Duxbury, but were there not other sites that you found perhaps that were at industrial zoned areas? Maybe not in Duxbury, but that would qualify for what you're looking for?
We do have other battery storage projects in other parts of the state as well. And they have different zoning. Some is commercial, some is industrial. A couple are residential as well. But they're, away from houses aligned with what NFPA guidance is.
They're getting money, that's why. My neighbor's getting money from this company, that's why. It's all about money, and it's 40.
Ma'am, we'll get to, I appreciate it.
It's really bothering me.
Yep.
I thought it was done several years ago, and it's,
All right, we'll give you a chance to speak.
I don't
Thank
want
you.
to speak, but I just
Cindy?
angry.
I'm done.
Okay. Everybody had a chance? I do have some questions. Yeah, Aaron, I'm Brian Glenn, I'm the chair of the board. You mentioned there that New Leaf has facilities in some residential districts. How many of those are in backyards?
Can I pull that together and get back to you?
That's fine. I don't need
Brian?
this moment, but nothing immediately comes to your mind, I presume.
There is one that I know of, but I would need to
Okay.
just run through our list one more
To-
time to be sure I'm not thinking of.
Can I ask
not-
you a little
I'm
bit,
not missing one.
and I appreciate you being here, Aaron, I realize this is a difficult conversation, but it's very necessary for the town to hear directly from the applicant so we can understand where you're coming from. Can you explain a little bit more about the importance of residential, or the importance of the residents' expectations and concerns when you're citing locations, and at what point does New Leaf, or at what point would New Leaf decide that maybe this is not an appropriate location simply based upon neighborhood concerns?
So I think we'd like to have the information session and hear more of the concerns. I certainly heard some tonight as I was taking notes. And we've said since the zoning board meeting that, you know, we're willing to hear feedback and see how we can adjust our designs with people's feedbacks and things. We do want people to be comfortable with these, and it's important to us that people feel safe. So I'd like to have the information session and hear from folks. I think that's the best next step from our end.
Okay. Fernando?
Yeah, final question. By the sounds of it, the way you answer that question is that you're not going away. You're going to build this facility in Duxbury in this residential area. That's what I heard in your answer. Is that correct?
Our company is committed to putting together projects that help us move to a world powered by zero carbon energy. And so, you know, we're looking for ways to do that, and energy storage is a big part of that, about, you know, putting it in places where it can do good for the state. And this is a place where it can do that. I certainly will I want to hear from neighbors and see what kinds of solutions that are available for us to come up with so that we can do that here. I do think that we can safely have a project here in this neighborhood, and that's how we'll design the project. We're not trying to put something here that is not safe. You know, I'm hearing everything you guys are saying, and we have safety measures in place. I know somebody was saying that they're just containers with these batteries in them, but they have HVAC systems in them to keep them in safe temperature zones to avoid the thermal runaway that was brought up. They have 24/7 monitoring. They go through a lot of industry testing. You know, the technology is really advancing as well, and so things are getting more and more safe. You know, some of those fires were several years ago. Things have changed since then. And we work with the fire department in Duxbury to make sure their concerns are met and incorporated into the design. We already did that a couple years ago, and we'll continue to work with them as things move on. And then also we hire, as I said, the folks that will come to the open house are former firefighters who are involved in the safety of these to make sure that they can be built and keep people safe. And that's who we work with to put together our emergency response plans. So I do think that these can be done and keep everybody safe, and we'd love to have some professionals at that open house that can answer questions for people and hear feedback and more concerns, and see if there's a solution we can come up with that allows the project to be built and makes sure that people feel safe.
I think, Aaron, give you honest feedback. I don't think anything you say, well, this neighborhood will find acceptable, all right? You can, I know that you'll try.
I can't hear you anymore.
I think you heard loud and clear what's going to happen on your open day. Thank you.
All right. I understand there is a public session, but it's like people are at work between 4 to 6. So what I'd like to do, without belaboring this topic all night, I would like to give folks an opportunity to maybe ask Erin some questions while she's here. Maybe folks who can't make it to the public hearing or the public session on the 20th. If you'd please line up to the mic.
Brian, we also
And Erin,
have
I
an
appreciate
email address if
your
people wanna-
indulgence in sticking with us to answer some of these very important questions. What, oh, go ahead. I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, I was just saying, we also have an email address if people want to send an email to that, and we can get
All
back
right,
to
yes,
them
could you
with-
share
with,
that so we could
their
all hear it?
questions.
Go ahead, Aaron, with the email address.
It's Duxbury Energy Storage at newleafenergy.com.
Okay, great. Yes, sir, if you'd introduce yourself for our record.
Sure, so Rich Potash, 30 Wright Lane. I had a question, if I can just clarify something on this. So you all had mentioned solar with this, the state regulations, and there's really two reasons to put these facilities in. One is if you site it near solar or wind, it provides a consistent power flow, and that makes perfect sense. Putting them here is just a way of trading energy prices. It's not, it's a stretch to say it's a green project. So I don't know what the state laws are, but it seems to me that, it doesn't really fall under what I would call green. You're doing some peak shedding, there's some minor benefit, but it's really about trading energy prices is what this project's about, which is fine, their business, they can want to do that, but I don't know if it really applies to these state laws of green energy. So it was just, if somebody can clarify it, that would help me.
Well, maybe Aaron can, but otherwise I think that's an issue for the court. Sheila, if you could reintroduce yourself, please, thanks.
Sheila Lynch, Benton and West Street. I have a question for Erin. She mentioned that the energy they're saving is from the daytime and storing it for at night when people get home. I know a little bit about peak shaving, and actually New Leaf buys at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. There's no solar on at that time. And Erin presented it as New Leaf is buying during the day, selling during 5 to 8 p.m. And that is a false statement. And I'm wondering why New Leaf is proposing that when on their actual website they buy at 3, 4, 5 in the morning. So I would encourage Erin not to put out false information. Another thing is the state is doing final BESS regulations next August of 26, and California is doing it also, and they're starting to no residential areas. Chances are by next August, the state of Massachusetts will have no residential areas. But what New Leaf is doing is trying to get Duxbury in before that. It's strictly for profit, and your goal is to, as select board, carry this out till next August when residential is not allowed, and not let them get through this project before that.
Am I allowed? Can you guys hear me?
Go ahead, Aaron, you can address that.
Okay. Thank you for pointing that out, Sheila. So the Clean Peak Energy Standard is what this project will be part of, and that's what set up the different guidelines that we have to follow. And one of those is that you have to be charging during renewable energy hours. So it can be during the day, which is typically when solar is producing more energy than people are using, or it can be in the evening, which is when wind is typically producing more. So, we're putting these in today, but the energy mix is going to change over time. So I apologize. I did not say both during the day and in the middle of the night. That it can do both. And then the actual discharge hours is during the peak loads, and that changes seasonally. And that's all through the Clean Peak program that DOER has put together.
All right, next question.
Hi, Aaron. This is Sean Sullivan from 805 West Street. Can you please tell us if you have an interconnection agreement in place with Eversource?
We do have an interconnection agreement completed, but yes, we do.
And why have you not produced that as part of the filings with the town yet?
So when we are you talking about as part of the summary judgment?
Well, the summary judgment, but also with the notice of intent that you filed with the town for conservation, with the zoning board, with any of the applications you filed with the town. My understanding is that you, in fact, did not have an interconnection agreement with Eversource.
So we have an interconnection services agreement that like we have from Eversource. We haven't finalized
not
it
specific
with
to
them.
this
So
site,
we do,
isn't
we
it?
do have our study is completed, but we
But you'd
haven't.
agree with me, it's not specific to
signed-
this site, is it?
Sorry, say that one more time.
You would agree the
I'm having
interconnection agreement that you have is not specific to this site. You have a general one with Eversource, but you haven't gotten one approved specifically for this site project, have you?
No, it's tied to this POI, which is right there on West Street.
And how is it
It is
that,
for this specific site.
how is it that you mentioned the cooling and HVAC of the facilities in which the batteries are stored, and how is that powered?
That's powered from the grid. There's auxiliary power that we pull from the grid to keep those, and then there's backup systems from some of the batteries.
And how are the backup systems powered?
The batteries.
Is there the use of diesel generators in the cooling product of the batteries?
No.
No. And who's the manufacturer for the batteries?
It hasn't been finalized yet because we're not at the point where we're purchasing units, but the ones that we've spec'd currently are Hythium is the brand.
And New Leaf is not going to operate this facility long-term, correctly? Correct?
Correct. Our business model is that we develop it and get it ready, and then someone who's a long-term owner and operator will own and operate it long-term.
So you sell it once it's completed?
Correct.
Okay. And do you have any targeted buyers that are planning to purchase this project yet?
We haven't put it up for sale yet, no.
Thank you. And if you wouldn't mind producing that interconnection agreement, we would be really happy to see that.
Thank you, Sean.
Okay, other questions?
Hi, Aaron. This is Matt Koenig. A couple of questions. Fernando asked a question about, and there may be a very good answer for this, I just haven't heard one way or the other. Asked you a question about the siting with regard to the substation down about a half mile from this location, and your response was we needed to be within 1 mile of the substation. So that leaves an awful lot of possibilities specifically at the substation. Is there a defined reason or some sort of legal reason why it's not being sited at the substation? I mean, it may be, and I'll be honest with you, I feel very badly for you because I think that you appear to be a sacrificial lamb on behalf of your employer. I do. You don't seem like you've been given a fully prepared script or battle plan to come to this meeting. And I say that with all sincerity. I'm not being flippant in any way, shape, or form. Why isn't this being cited at the substation? I mean, it could be as simple as there's not enough room within the boundaries of that facility. But do you know why that is?
Yep, there's no sites that are next to there that we could put a project. We did look along the entire feeder.
So there's no footprint available at the substation to place 20 megawatt hour system, probably 25 megawatt hours installed, which given the Hythium containers, I know them well, the guy that runs it got his first job in the business with me. Those are 20-foot, 5 megawatt hour containers each, so you probably are installing at least 5 of them. And I'm assuming that you're using AC coupled, so a central inverter tied to each one or a pairing. Is there not enough room for 5 to 6 5 megawatt hour containers at the substation? Because that would seem to be the zero entry pool position for you guys, and I'm just curious why that isn't the case.
Matt, if you have connections with a site that's right next to the substation, I would love to be.
Well, sure, I would love to give you that, but maybe if you gave me the answer first, I could find my way to that.
Yeah, I would need to look. We did an alternatives analysis to look for other sites that had enough space and that were directly adjacent to this feeder, and there were a couple that we found, but none
Okay.
were suitable, and there was not one right next to the substation. I will take another look.
Sure.
But I mean, I did some of the analysis myself, and there was not any space there
And
on the
I
substation for us
apologize
to do.
if that came off as
Also, the
snarky. It's not
substation
my,
parcels themselves are owned by Eversource, and Eversource isn't gonna own these facilities. So that's another
Well-
piece. You might see space right next to it, but that's owned by
okay.
Eversource.
And again, I didn't mean to be snarky. So are you flipping an NTP, or are you going to build the COD and flip?
Most likely, we would sell it at NTP.
Okay, so you actually, for the room, they will flip it at a point of permission, and the buyer will then, who will likely be the IPP, the independent power producer, who buys it from them, will build it. So at the flip at NTP model, the entity that flips at NTP does not build or own and operate the facility. And Amy, to your point, no one can ever tell you specifically where the electrons come from. They're on the grid. They may have, it may be power. It's really a desktop exercise. Like when you say, I want 100% of my house's power from renewable energy. Well, it's kind of a demand and supply, and they pair it off, and they say, we can attribute on paper, you're using this much energy, and it's being essentially supplied by solar, but nobody, by the laws of physics, can tell you where those electrons came from. So, apologies.
Fernando, go ahead.
Just, so what did I just hear? So New Leaf is, you're going to basically have this project permitted, sourced, but you won't build it, you'll sell it at that point in time to somebody else to come in and build it? Is that right?
Yeah, so Fernando, the way our business model works is that we specialize in development. And so, yes, that's what we do. We get the project, the permits, we get the interconnection agreements, we get the agreements for the land lease, and then we do the designs, and then somebody whose specialty is owning and operating, which tends to be an IPP, as Matt mentioned, an independent power producer, they will then come in and do what they do best, which is building and then operating the facility long term.
So I have a basic problem, right? So you're making promises about safety and performance and operation of for somebody who's not in the room?
But they all get memorialized in the project designs,
So maybe ask me another question. Maybe if there is a fire.
Fire department for the emergency plans, like all of those are passed to the buyers, and they have to abide by those as well. And we partner with buyers that share our philosophy on those kinds of things. So it's not just me standing here saying I'm going to do those things. Those would be memorialized in the project designs and agreements.
Okay, so if this operator comes in and then runs the unit 2-3 years later, and then there is a fire, so who's held liable? The operator or you?
So it would be whoever owns Duxbury Energy Storage LLC. So it would be the operator.
So operator, so you make all these promises and then you walk away then basically with no liability.
No,
Is that's your
I mean,
business model then?
It won't be Aaron Kendrick that you call, but it would be people who are putting the plans in place that we put together. And the safety of these is all about mitigation and avoiding anything happening, and that's how the systems are designed to operate.
Okay,
All right,
anyway, thank you.
Why don't we have the next question?
I'll be brief. Now that we know a little more, that changes a little bit my question, because my first question is, what is the structure made of? What's the facility? What's the facility
is in,
made
or
of?
do you mean the actual
Is it metal
battery
storage
chemistry?
containers? So it's 20 footers, there's 5 of them, and 8 of them.
8.
Okay, they told me
They're-
5, okay.
There's
So 8 of
5.
them, and my other question is, how do you intend to protect this from a fire safety point of view, from a life safety point of view? I don't want to hear that you're passing it on to somebody else. You have to have a fire plan in place before you pass it to somebody. So what is your fire plan in place?
Correct. So it's all about avoiding thermal runaway, right? Like keeping them in a temperature that makes sure that they never get to that point. And so it's the HVAC systems that are keeping them in those temperatures. It's the 24/7 monitoring that's monitoring the temperatures
You're
that
gonna
they're
use
in,
your
so
HVAC
that
to
if
put out a
anything
lithium
happens,
fire?
you also have the Novak. Sorry, I can't hear you if you're saying
You're gonna-
something else.
You're going to put out a lithium fire with HVAC?
No, I'm not gonna put
I
one
get
out.
it.
I'm gonna make sure it doesn't start.
And then you said, all right, hold on. And then you said you're going to put a clean agent in there?
Yes.
What type of clean agent? What's the agent? You're going to put a Novak 200 or an FM 200?
I think that that's the plan, but if we could do that in the information session, we can talk about some more specifics.
I hate to
But
tell you,
the,
this is an
yes, it
information
is
session.
that
We
type
came
of
here.
agent.
So, just so we know, and I'm going to leave it at this, but there is no, I don't know how many times to say this, there is no clean agent that can put out a fire. There's nothing that can put out a lithium fire.
Yeah, the
Okay.
intention isn't to put out the fire; it's to stop it from happening. So the clean
You
agent
can't.
will
You
reduce the
can't. The
temperature.
thermal runaway would just go. So the only thing is a deluge system. So I'm going to leave it at that, but like I said, there's tremendous safety issues. I think the information that's being presented continues to be inconsistent, and now that we know what their true business model and their true plan is, again, they don't care about the town. They care about themselves. And I'll leave you on this question. I don't know if you have kids, would you want this in your backyard?
I do have kids, and if my backyard didn't have the topography it does, I would
Doesn't
be okay
matter.
having it.
Doesn't matter. You want me to drop these things 150 feet from your kids? 25? That's a shame. That's a Grady White, for God's sake.
Let me ask this, so for folks who can't attend on the 20th, I want to give an opportunity to everybody to ask questions while we have Erin here. But if there are
We
things
will
that
also look at.
we make that a different time?
That meeting.
People work.
Is there, Nancy, is there anybody online who wants to
Somebody
speak?
is just trying to,
But can we make that information session later?
Yes.
I mean, 4 to
That's what I was
6?
just going to say is we can look at extending that time of that meeting, so I will get back to you on that.
Uh,
I don't want to extend the meeting. I want you to change the time so people can be there. If you truly care about the feedback of the town, make it appropriate for everybody to be there. Okay?
I
So
will
we would like it
definitely
to be
look
later.
into that, sir.
Don't tell me you'll look into this. I'm tired of being told we'll look into this. Get it done. Make it later so that everybody
I
can
will
talk to you.
make I will make the meeting later.
Okay, thank you.
All right, who's that speaking? Was that Carolyn?
No, Erin.
That was
Yeah.
Carolyn.
That was Carolyn, but
All
we're
right,
on the
that's-
same team.
Yeah, that's Carolyn, okay. All right, so Carolyn, how do we get the information about the new time for,
Well, we
the
just
event?
heard from you on Friday about coming tonight.
if we can
We
be
wanted
quiet
to
in the room,
make
please,
sure that
so
we
so
came
everybody can
tonight,
hear.
but we-
Thank you.
All right.
Carolyn, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just saying, we just heard from you on Friday about coming tonight, so we wanted to make sure we came tonight. We will definitely, if Erin's okay with that, Erin, are you okay if we make the meeting a little bit later? I just have to check with the library and we will make that happen.
All right, and then please email the town manager, Rainey Reed, so we can get the information out to the public.
That's it. We heard from the town manager on Friday about tonight, yes.
Okay, thank you. I see that we have Representative Sweezy joining us this evening. Representative, would you care to address any of the issues? I know you mentioned something about statewide moratorium.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. First of all, everybody, thank you so much for coming out and defending our town.
I apologize that it's under such circumstances, but this is the most important thing that we can be doing. So I just want to be clear about a few things. I released a statement back after I met with a lot of the neighbors here on September 7th, because there's two big concerns. I think we've hashed out quite a bit about the health and the safety and some of the parameters. And unfortunately, a lot of companies don't even show up. I know that there's a lot to be desired here, but New Leaf showing up and explaining is not easy to do. But there's a big problem, because what did every single answer basically contain is that this is a complete policy failure at the state level. This is something that is avoidable. And forgive me, Mr. Chair, for editorializing a little bit here, but you know, this is something that we see with MBTA zoning. This is something that we see with the Apple Green disaster on the service plazas. There's things that are going on at the state level that are allowing these things to happen, that are creating issues where we need to fight each other or fight these big corporations that the state is backing for no reason. So I am your representative to the state. I am not the state. And on that note, there's 3 bills that have already been filed just in the last month that are going to have the ability, should they be passed and should they have a vote, to put all this to rest. So, Representative Pease out west, they have defeated these. You see, there are options. We have to put the pressure on. You have already taken that first step. It's not just here. I think we've heard the Select Board's doing a great job to defend the town as well. I am dedicated to that mission, but we need to continue to put the pressure on. So that is the AG, the governor, the LG. When I was fighting MBTA zoning, the lieutenant governor had to call me personally to describe what they were doing with these grant funds that they were pulling away from our communities. So this pressure is important. So for anybody who cares that would like to take the numbers down, it is House Docket 4556, House Docket 4557, and House Docket 4558 that were just filed. These 3 bills do a few things. They, one, would create a moratorium, which I wanted to bring up as the conversation that we had. The town can certainly request, depending on their legal situation, that moratorium, but at the state level, creating a statewide, because this is not a NIMBYism issue. Everyone's going to take the easy route and say, oh, that's Duxbury saying that they just don't want this in their backyard. Not only is it literally in our backyards on West Street, and I live on Lincoln Street. I'm exactly a mile away. I learned about this because somebody told me from the address listed on the ballot that I was inside the evacuation zone. So I understand that this is home and this is close. So it would create that moratorium. It would create mandatory buffer zones that also would affect this project. And what it would do, and what I think is the most admirable because of this state overreach, it would create a situation where the state would have to accept the decisions of the town boards that are supposed to have the authority to zone these and site these out. And that is what the state has taken from us. I ran on a lot of things, and what I've spent the last 9 months doing almost exclusively is seeing the state trying to take zoning authority away to get to policy ends. And that is not right. Here in the Commonwealth, the towns have sovereignty, and the towns have rights, and our residents have rights. So whether it's against a corporation, whether it's against the state, no matter who comes to Duxbury, we are going to make sure we file the legislation. We're going to make sure that we try to get these votes. And I'm going to do whatever I need to do to support this select board and make sure that everybody hears our concerns so that we protect our town. So I apologize for the editorializing. I thank you for the time. I'll have plenty of information about those bills. We're going to try to get those to a public hearing. They're not guaranteed because they were filed late, but we're going to work very hard to make sure that you can make sure the state hears our voices up on Beacon Hill as well. So thank you, Mr. Chair, to the board. I'm happy to support you guys any way you need, and I'll be here for questions as well before you go. So thank you. Do you have any questions, Brian? You good? Any questions?
All good. Thank you, Ken. Well said. Rainey, who's that? Someone of council?
Yeah, Amy Questel's here if you have questions, but we can wait. It's up to you.
Okay, yeah.
It's entirely up to you.
Yes, sir. You have a question?
John Higley, 45 Acorn Street. Because this is energy, it's a public utility, I think I'd ask the representative to maybe incorporate this, but I think when a project like this is proposed, and this is only a proposal, but when it's proposed, they ought to show why this site, we've had some discussion about why this site, but I'd sure feel a lot more comfortable if I understood what other locations in this region, because this energy is a regional thing, not just this part of Duxbury, or not just Duxbury, not just the few adjacent towns, but in the region, show what are the proposed sites, so the possible locations, so that we can better understand why this site is so important to the public that we need to put health, safety at risk for these reasons. If that's the case, fine. But as I mentioned before, a lot of energy projects have been zoned in our glorious past that in retrospect have been not very good, not very well thought out, because it's very hard to predict. So zoning has not caught up, as everybody agrees. The National Renewable Energy Laboratory agrees that zoning is immature. So particularly when it's immature, we ought to be able to see what locations are possible and why this location, so that we can understand why it's worth the risk that this site really shows. But I think that ought to be incorporated if it's possible. I think you're on the right track, and I'd suggest. I like it. But that's also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Amy?
I guess I just want to speak to the zoning aspect. I think for me, I don't necessarily think that zoning hasn't caught up. I think zoning is what it is. Zoning is what our community wants it to be. And we have, as a community, decided we want to be residential. And the bottom line is that this does not belong in a residential area, whether it's on West Street, or whether it's over where the substation is on East Street, or whether it's in Tinkertown, or whether it's on Powder Point. It does not belong in a residential zone. And why are we here? Our town says, no, we don't allow this in the residential zone. Well, the state, as our state rep was just saying, has created a loophole, an exemption, under the guise of renewable energy. That's where I was going with this, because this isn't renewable energy. They're getting energy from the grid, and they're building a facility for profit and then to sell and all these things. So I think we need to, we're fighting it at the local level because everything starts at the local level. And I'm so glad to see everybody here and engaged and willing to do this. I think Sheila Lynch Benton is so wise, and she's saying, hold out. We got to wait for our legislation to catch up. It's not zoning that hasn't caught up. I don't want to see zoning change to allow for these things. No, it's the legislature. We need to address this through the legislature and get things to be smart and fight it that way. But I'm so glad everybody's here.
All right. Any other questions from the board? Statements, comments? No? Anything else from the public? Yes, ma'am. If you can come up to the microphone and introduce yourself.
Thank you. I didn't plan to speak this evening, but I thought I'd just weigh in on this. I'm not on West Street. I'm on Lincoln Street. I'm a neighbor.
Your name, please.
Pardon me?
Your name.
Oh, yes, Ann Malowitz.
Thanks. We have it for our record in the back.
Okay, thank you. I've lived on Lincoln Street for 35 years in the same house we built. I retired 5 years from Mass DEP. My job was section chief of cleaning up hazardous waste sites. Ooh. And I have firsthand knowledge of plumes, groundwater contamination, and the impact heavy metals would impact children and the environment. So listening to the presentation this evening, it seems very, by this, I'm not really sure who, Leaf, presented, it seems very open-ended in the point that we can be contaminated, and our children, the farmlands, and I think prior to this presentation, we talked about John Alden and things like that. My neighbor next door, his family came over with John Alden, the Cushing area and the Chandlers. So I think we have to think about, if there is a fire at that station, we're all going to be impacted. Not West Street, Lincoln Street, Pembroke, Marshville, all the abutters. Now, I'm not sure who owns that particular property, but is he here or is she here tonight? Let's think about this. Once that fire happens on his or her property, that's a hazardous waste site. guess who's responsible under the law to clean it up? That property owner. They're selling it? Well, okay, so they may be selling it, but the next person will.
Yeah.
Now, I am not sure what the bond is in place to protect the rest of us, but there should be there needs to be a huge bond, because that's standard practice with hazardous waste contaminated sites. So my property would be contaminated. It's a metal. It's not going to like dissolve. It's going to be there. It's going to be in the air. It's going to be on our farmland. It's going to be in the bogs. So this is, and the idea of Big Brother telling us. Now, I was Big Brother. I was the representative of the state. But my job was to go out and listen to the selectmen and the community and find out how do we fix something? How do we clean it up? So I'm really concerned that Big Brother's telling us now we need to put a hazardous waste site in our residential area. That's not right. It's just not right. And I just thought I'd mention that tonight because what I see down the line is our neighborhood, not just West Street, but that whole section abutting Pembroke, Marshfield, Lincoln Street, Acon Street, anywhere that plume may go, it will be littered with lithium, a heavy metal. So it's more than just a little battery section. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Nancy, do we have anybody online with a hand raised? Okay. All right. Anything else? We've heard a lot tonight. We appreciate everyone coming out. All right, so we will move on. Thanks, everybody. This is not the end of the discussion. And thank you, Aaron, for joining us tonight.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for having us, and we look forward to hearing from more of you guys on the 20th.
Okay, thank you. All right, we do have some more business. You're welcome to stick around. We hope you'll stick around and watch what we're doing. But if you do need to leave, if you could do so quietly so we can continue to engage in our business.
So we have, just reflecting, we have the nuclear power plant has left us with a little cask full of uranium, right?
Yes.
And now we'll have.
Now it's a different issue.
That's a different issue.
Yep. Okay, next on our agenda is Town Manager's Report. Mr. Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If anybody's interested, there will be a meeting on the Powder Point Bridge the night after the meeting with New Leaf. And it's being hosted by the Mass Department of Transportation. It's going to be in the Duxbury High School cafeteria on Tuesday, the 21st, from 6 to 8 p.m. Again, the Powder Point Bridge Replacement Project Public Meeting and Listening Session. And this will be posted on the town's website tomorrow. But the purpose of the meeting is for the Mass DOT project team to engage with the community on potential bridge designs. Mass DOT will not be presenting design plans at this time. The meeting will focus on gathering community input for the project team to use to develop a design that best suits the needs of the community. Attendees will have the opportunity to participate in group discussions and share input following a short presentation. All views and comments made at the meeting will be reviewed and considered to the maximum extent possible. How will it affect the individuals here in town? The proposed project consists of designing a replacement bridge that meets current design standards. Mass DOT is hosting this meeting to gather feedback from the community to be incorporated into the bridge's design. Again, that is Tuesday, October 21st, from 6 to 8 p.m. in the Duxbury High School cafeteria at 71 Alden Street here in Duxbury.
That's good.
Then I had one other brief update.
Oh, do we have an extra one of these?
Yeah.
I think I just passed out 5. One other quick update for you regarding the MBTA communities. In speaking with Brian earlier this week, he had asked that I reach out to council regarding the letter from the Attorney General concerning the special town meeting article, where the AG had approved the special town meeting article, and he had asked for further clarity, and Amy Questle responded as follows. As of October 1st, 2025, the town is in interim compliance with the MBTA communities, as the EOHLC has not issued a district compliance determination. That being said, there is nothing the town needs to do. As Rebecca Ruffley, our interim planner at the time, filed the paperwork with the EOHLC on July 2nd, 2025. We're just waiting for the EOHLC to complete their review and issue the determination. And with that, that's my report.
Thank you, and I just want to reiterate my appreciation to town meeting for passing the MBTA communities bylaw at the time. I'm reading about other communities that did not, and they're facing some serious issues with the state that we are now avoiding. So I'm glad we're beyond that. Thank you, everybody. Anything for the town manager? All right, let's move on to committee appointments, reappointments, and resignations. Mr. Clerk.
Yes, I move that the Select Board appoint Nicole Bree-Leon to the Duxbury Affordable Housing Trust for a term to expire on 30th of June, 2027.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you to Ms. Ling for serving.
Yeah. The following boards and committees have the available seats. There is one seat available on the Alternative Energy Committee, the Board of Health as an alternate, the Conservation Commission, the Design Review Board, and the Nuclear Advisory Committee. There are 3 seats available on the Duxbury Bay Management Commission, Municipal Commission on Disabilities, and the Taxation Aid Committee. If anyone is interested in volunteering on a board or committee, you're encouraged to fill out a talent bank form, which can be found on the town's website under the Forms and Document tab.
Thank you. Next, we have one-day liquor licenses. The first for, it looks like both of them for South Shore Conservatory, one on October 30th and the other on October 31st for a Halloween performance.
I move that Mr. Mickey White, as a representative of Harbour Lights Theatre, is granted a one-day wine and malt licenses to hold Halloween theatre performance events from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the South Shore Conservatory, 64 St. George Street, on the following dates, subject to the conditions of the license: Thursday, October 30th, 2025, and on Friday, October 31st, 2025.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. Announcements.
There are 4 announcements. The first is the Community Preservation Act funding. All funding request applications to the Community Preservation Committee must be filed with the Community Preservation Committee no later than October 15th. Applications are available on the Community Preservation Committee's website, on the town's website at www.town.duxbury.ma.us, or by emailing a request to conservation@duxbury-ma.gov. Completed applications should be returned by email to conservation@duxbury-ma.gov, or by regular mail to the Conservation Department, 878 Tremont Street, Duxbury, MA 02332. Applications must be received by the October 15th deadline. Second, the local scene, formerly pac-tv, will be conducting electrical maintenance at the facility on Saturday, October 11th, between 7 a.m. and 2 p.m. During that time, the community government and public access channels, Comcast 9 and Verizon 39, will be down. The channels will be restored once the maintenance has been completed. However, if anyone wishes to watch replays of the meetings, they may do so through meeting archives on YouTube, as that programming will not be interrupted. Third, Town Hall offices close Monday, October 13th, 2025, in observance of Columbus Day / Indigenous Peoples Day. And lastly, the next scheduled Select Board meeting will be on Monday, October 20th, 2025, at 6:30 p.m. in the Mural Room.
One thing I just want to make mention of, we are in the Senior Center this evening. You mentioned the local scene, formerly known as pac-tv. I just want to thank Dave on the board tonight for packing up all the equipment, bringing it out so we can be recorded and distributed this evening to all the folks who wanted to see all of our business, but in particular the battery storage thing. That was very important. So thank you, Dave, and the local scene. All right, may I have a motion?
I move to adjourn the meeting, the select board meeting this evening.
Second.
We have motion and second. Any discussion on the motion? No discussion at all?
Nope.
Okay, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries 5-0. We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.